Hello everyone, this is Kat and Krystal Blake and welcome to Exiting the First Cognition. Today we're doing something a bit different because we collaborated to create this script when we both realized that we were talking about a similar process while on this path. I'm going to discuss the road bumps and hurdles I had to face when staying on this path, while she explains the hidden programs that function like landmines to our psyches. We both know that this isn't an easy road, so we both thought that this would be beneficial or encouraging to others who are on the same path. The road towards cognitive advancement is full of surprises that could thwart you off of your path. Whether they are habits or deeply embedded and hidden programs, you will be confronted with obstacles within yourself that could act as impediments to your path, if you let it. Okay, so starting out on this path, I did feel an inner drive that was my Soika prompting me to advance and grow, but as I said in my previous video, expectations versus realizations, how I expected this path to be and how I wanted it to come out was not as I expecting it, and my ego rebelled every step of the way, which affected my motivation to advance. I hated how I had to do this or that, or what I formerly believed about myself or my personal beliefs was not true, but I kept moving forward despite the resentment my ego programming made me feel towards the process. This is because inside I knew in my Soika that this was the only way. I had trouble finding the motivation and stamina to advance because of my habits and thinking too much. I couldn't understand the messages because I was thinking too much and trying to figure out what it truly means in order to attain it, all while my Soika was prompting me to listen while my thinking mind kept resisting because it wanted to understand it intellectually first, or be a certain way for me to accept it. As mentioned before, setting your ego aside is the easy part of the process. Our happy habits are the slippery slope that can easily pull us right back to where we started, and it is your habits and programming that is going to be the true beast to overcome, because you are deconstructing a lifetime of deeply embedded happy habits that many don't want to face or admit, and I was no different. Confronting our own mirror image is essential to advancement on this path, along with the acceptance of brutal honesty. I know all too well what it feels like to have your world pulled out from under you, and pushing through this process all while your ego digs in its heels, kicks and screams, and makes you feel beaten up the entire way, all while trying to pull you back under. This is truly like a bucket of crabs working to prevent you from moving forward, and each and every single one of those crabs is your own personal demon to confront. No, staying the course is not easy, and it doesn't always feel good, especially when you face reality. Even though I didn't really accept it then, I eventually realized sticking through this has given me and my Soika an inner strength and resilience that the ego can never attain or understand. This inner strength is often referred to as the will to power, stilled resolve, personal power, or intent, and it was this inner power that gave me the focus and grit to stay the course and slay my own demons. I want to say that with owning your personal power also means owning your personal shit too, acknowledging it, learning from it, and doing whatever you can to change it to genuinely recreate yourself to be whoever you want to be. In other words, personal growth is a responsibility that isn't easy and that many are afraid to be accountable for, because that means realizing what we see in the mirror, which is our weaknesses, and how this makes us feel isn't pretty. I was told that habits are like holding onto a rope that controls you. To step into your Soika, you have to willingly let go of that rope, but to do so, we have to learn to quit allowing our heads to make challenges more difficult than they should be, which I know isn't easy, moving from the known to the unknown to learn self-trust and self-confidence. The responsibility is entirely on you, the individual, to push through this. I was riddled with doubt about my own strength and gumption to advance because of my habits and overthinking. As I was told, the brain is distrustful of this process because it doesn't know beyond intellectual conceptualizing, and it always questions everything, thrives on doubt and second guessing, so self-trust is the casualty. Our ego mind is dependent on external validation to feel this kind of faux reassurance called ego confidence, and once we start facing a lifetime of first cog ego habits, it is human to resort to our programming, never knowing that we're actually doing it. It's a habit and deeply ingrained, which is why it's so difficult to learn self-trust and attain our personal power, or Soika confidence as I like to call it. Our embedded programming will never guide us on this road to self-discovery, and it is truly an impediment to cognitive growth and expansion. I have discussed the difficulties of overriding deeply ingrained habits, but now I'm going to let our friend Krystal talk about the hidden programming that are like landmines waiting to be triggered and to explode.
As Kat has stated, this path is not the easiest traveled, and you'll be confronted with many challenges and obstacles that will test your grit along the way. Rather than focusing on where you think you're going, stay focused on where you are right now and find what may be inhibiting your growth or stalling your advancement. By staying future focused and dwelling on where you think you should be, you're missing things in the here and now that could be addressed. We and others are sharing our experiences along our paths, but please remember, and this is very important, everyone is unique and individual. Do not create an expectation by believing that your experience should look exactly like anyone else's. These are two issues I had to address personally, so I feel it is important to share. Anyway, the hard work is not only in removing the external indoctrination beliefs and Hapim habits, but the internal programming as well. It is truly like a minefield because they're hidden deep within, and you never know when or where you'll trip them. As the BLs have been teaching, humanity has been nothing but an energetic food source, and there's plenty being produced by humans today. Simply observe your own behavior and find when you feel strong emotions, whether it be happy, sad, angry, mad. It doesn't even matter because they are all emotions. Again, everyone is different in this regard, but when these programs are tripped, you can have deep-seated anger, be driven to tears, or even depression, just to name a few. Using self-talk, and this is explained thoroughly in the second Cognition toolbox, is very important for this process. Our internal programming has layers and layers placed on each and every one of us throughout our lives, creating these conflicts within. Can you remember a time where you were caught doing something that was very embarrassing to you? Or do you remember asking a question in front of a class only to be laughed at? These scenarios, as well as many others, can place internal programming within the cells of the physical form, causing a reaction when even thinking back to the original event. Then as we go through more of life's experiences, they can become layered upon, triggering the emotional reaction over and over again. This is where you can pay attention and deal with those triggers whenever you feel them. I have been taught and found it to be true that to do the self-talk when the emotions are running has the greatest benefit. The self-talk will relieve the emotion as it is being removed. Once the emotions are settled, then you can deal with the trigger as needed. Ponder what the issue was that set it off in the first place and begin to see it in a totally different light. The memory won't have the effect on the form as it did before and will not emit that energetic garbage in the already toxic environment. I have to warn you though, self-talk is not fully take care of the issue, but only the emotional attachment. You have to do the hard work to deal with the original reason it was embedded. I have to mention that abuse has huge effects of this nature, but I will not go into that now. The thing about it is, you may never know what is going to be the trigger. You may have some deep programming just waiting to explode. You may be watching a movie or reading a book that will trigger a reminder of an event, or even just an overblown emotional reaction. It may be in a conversation and something being said will have a big effect on you, and you think, damn, where did that come from? Well, now you know. You have an internal program to deal with. Now, I know some of you will say that we are driven to reaction from external sources just by being compassionate human beings. But think about it. Why are you reacting to someone else's emotions and stories or what have you? Is it truly affecting you? And being an empath is a whole other issue that I'm not talking about here. Have you been taught the behavior? Were you told you were cold and heartless because you don't react to another's experiences the way society deems appropriate? I'm not saying you need to be without feelings or never shed a tear or get pissed off at something. You just need to question to make sure there isn't something behind the emotions you are experiencing. And the emotions you feel shouldn't remain and have lasting effects on your form or your psyche. Have you ever thought of how much energy we emit through our emotions? Even happy emotions can leave us drained energetically. It is important to control these emotions not only from an environmental pollution, but more importantly for your soika as well. Our soika energy can be depleted. By removing the programming and dealing with the indoctrination and hapim habits, your soika's energy will be increased. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to just give it away. I hope what we have shared will give you points to ponder on your path and help you to maintain your growth and expansion and stay on course. Thank you for listening and considering the information shared, as well as subscribing to Exiting the First Cognition.